bringing on the Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.
Hit it, Ralph.
Make everyone mad. Let's go.
Let's go. Welcome to another episode of the Crowded Booth. Can you hear? Can you hear that?
No, I cannot. Is my dad downstairs yelling something?
Fan who is tomahawk chopping along with us. It's the Crowded Booth Live. Bryce Coon alongside Ralph Leary. We are very happy to talk to you because usually around this time of the year, Ralph, we're talking about college football playoff rankings, which I think this is the last week that we don't have college ball playoff rankings. Our rankings are going to be posted on Instagram right after this show. That Ralph has put out a tweet. He didn't think Oklahoma was the number 3 team in the country. That backs this up. But anyways, we usually talk about this time because Ralph, our Atlanta Braves.
1 second.
Go ahead.
You got to bring someone over from the Georgia Tech podcast here.
Love it. Scott Robinson, Braves in 6. We love it, Scott. We love it. Ralph, we don't often get to talk about what's going on in baseball because we're like, our team's out of it. The Atlanta Braves are headed to the World Series for the first time since 1999. So party like it's 1999. This is the Crowded Booth Live. We appreciate if you're watching over on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you're on the YouTube page, make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on a Tuesday throughout East Alabama and West Georgia, we're kind of your preview show. We're the preview show before the preview show, before the lovely pipes of Ben Ingram greet you from Houston, Texas, Ralph, Minute Maid Park. Oh, wow. World Series 2021. We're going to talk a little bit about this tonight. We're going to recap what happened last Saturday. Ralph, you watched it. I listened to it. We both had different vantage points of what happened. Mm-hmm. But, man, first off, what does it mean? Because we could go do the whole show about this. What does it mean to have our team, this team, heading to the World Series?
Well, Bryce, we were, 2 years old last time they made it to the World Series in 1999. And, both of us grew up Braves fans. We really have. Mm-hmm. The only team I really cared about growing up was Braves. We went to Braves games growing up from Turner Field to SunTrust Park and now Truist Park. It's a different mindset down here, and people who are Braves fans and who have been a part of this team for so long, and hearing fans or see people on Facebook saying, "I can remember when in 95 when we won the World Series." I'm like, well, I wasn't even alive then. I didn't get to be around that kind of environment. This was the first time that you and I, as a fan of the Braves, have been able to witness the World Series and be able to pull for a team in the World Series for the first time ever. Because every year you're always like, who am I going to pull against this year? Who do I want to see win this year? Last year I wanted the Rays to win. I didn't want the Dodgers to win.
Last year I didn't even watch the World Series.
Ralph. I think I might have watched 2 first pitches and then went to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it wasn't exciting. And there were some pretty big plays that happened last year, but it doesn't matter anymore because the Braves are in the World Series, and now we got a lot to talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about. Scott Robinson over there in the chat, I know he's subscribed. Make sure to be like Scott and subscribe to the channel. He goes, I think I'm an even matchup like this. You try to dig and see what separates the two teams, and I think it's the pitching, especially the bullpen. We're going to talk a little bit about that, Scott. But it's the pitching and the bullpen, Ralph, that really separated itself throughout the playoffs so far for Atlanta. There's so many angles we can go with this, but let's take the angle of the NLCS where it just felt like the Dodgers were just gassed. They ran out of pitching. They ran out of their best hurlers being at their best. And what I mean is Walker Buehler, Ralph, at 75% is still a really, really good pitcher. Like, he is going to be the face of the Dodgers rotation for years to come. He's just very, very talented. Max Scherzer, he was gassed, could not go in Game 6. So they go to Walker Buehler, which is not a bad alternative, I'll be honest. That's really good. That's 2 guys who are in the Cy Young conversation this year. But when you saw that move on Saturday, you knew how well Atlanta had hit Walker Buehler, and really just anybody on this pitching staff, did it boost the confidence a little bit because it showed maybe a little desperation from the Dodgers, or how did that play out? Let's say around 5:00 on Saturday afternoon for you.
Well, I've told you what my day was like on Saturday and how I prepared for the game. But in the back of my mind, I knew that no matter who they started, from Scherzer to Buehler, I was confident that we could at least get a few hits off of them and get a few runs in. I was confident with our lineup and how they played all series and all year against Buehler and Scherzer. We've seen Scherzer, I don't know, 20-something times, and just in probably at home in general the past few years. And then, we've seen Buehler a few times. We've seen Buehler at home in the playoffs. And I realized this, the last time Buehler pitched in a playoff game in Truist Park was the 2018 Grand Slam by Acuna. So I knew it. He probably thought in the back of his head he can't give up a big run like that again because it's going to get this crowd started. And that's what happened.
You talked about Truist Park. That place was rocking on Saturday night. I was in the building like we talked about last week on Sunday evening, and I'm okay to say, Ralph, that is my last trip to Truist Park. I'm fine with that with the ticket prices that came out. But the atmosphere, what led to us, the fan base being a part of this. I mean, this was so much different. And I'll say this, going into this series, a lot of people thought of, oh gosh, here comes 3-1. And this series played out up until Game 6 exactly in the same script the 2020 series did. The difference for me was the home field advantage because Atlanta fed off of that, in my opinion. LA fed off of it in their crowd. That allowed them to come back in Game 3, I think it was, when Bellinger hit the home run.
Yeah.
That allows that. When you're playing in, Arlington, they're playing at the Rangers Stadium with, how many people did they have? 6,000, I think,
it was
around
like
6,000 or 7,000.
25%.
Yeah, so it was very small. So I think that played a big part into it. But man, when you see what this NLCS did, for me personally, it was one of those things that I was almost just so happy to get past the Dodgers because that's what's felt like the World Series. Now you have another potential 7-game series for the world for all the marbles. I'm a little flustered because this is just crazy. It's crazy to think about what Atlanta has been able to do. Let's go back to the NLCS, Ralph. Timely hitting. Eddie Rosario. Ralph, you could not turn on MLB The Show and bat .567.
In 14, and what? How many games? Was it 6 games? I guess
12, 13 games, something like that. What Eddie Rosario's done?
NLCS games. He has 14 hits in NLCS games alone.
Yes, so he's 14 out of 26, I think it was. You can't even turn on a video game and do what he's been able to do.
Build him a statue between Bobby Cox and Hank Aaron because that's where he belongs.
Eddie Rosario, well-deserved NLCS MVP. Tyler Matzik turned in one of the best relief appearances that we've seen in recent history in the playoffs. It was absolutely amazing what he did. Were you impressed with what Matzik did? I felt like he was turning it on as the season, as the season came to an end, he was really pitching well. But then for him to be able to turn around and inherit a situation that was not easy, second and third, nobody out, strikes 3 out, and then proceeds to go into the next inning and sit them down in order. He sits down 6 straight, and I think it was under 20-something pitches he did it in. It's unreal. What Tyler Matzik was able to do, that was such a key piece, I felt like, especially, and a big turning point where it could have gone sour.
Well, a guy from, going in last year had the quote-unquote yips, and they said he can get rocked easily. If he gets up one hit, it's over for him. You saw a different animal out of him in the postseason this year. He's 10 and a third innings, 17 strikeouts.
Yeah,
the dude's been elite. Honestly, you can't underestimate what he's able to do on the mound, no matter who's at the bat. Today in baseball, you're going for matchups. You want lefty versus lefty, righty versus righty. Tyler Matzik doesn't care about matchups. He goes in there and throws strikes to you. He got everyone out. And I was like, when he came up the bat, or he came on the mound to pitch to fix what Luke Jackson had did. It was 2 on, second and third, no one out. He proceeded to strike 3 straight guys out. And you want to talk about rocking of a stadium? I'm pretty sure I felt the stadium shake from my house in Columbus. It was extreme. It was, it was a momentum shifter. You felt like the momentum was shifted toward the Dodgers right there. You're like, okay, they're gonna get some runs here, and then Matzik comes in there and shuts them up completely. And it was honestly one of the coolest experiences I got to watch on TV. And just because I was fired up. I mean, I was on my feet after the inning. I couldn't explain to you what was going on, but it was one of the coolest experiences watching it happen.
And it was the storyline of what Matzik has been able to do. We're going to talk a little bit about what the pitching needs to be able to do in Houston. But man, up until the blowout that was Game 5, this was Matzik pitching every single game. He had done that the entire series in both series, NLDS and LCS. And I'll be honest, Rob, my opinion of this, I thought they had a chance to make the playoffs. I thought that they could have a chance to get past Milwaukee. They had a pretty good shot. I wasn't expecting this, and so for all this is the cherry on top right now. This is the icing on top of the cake.
One of the best runs since the Nationals run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it has to be.
It's crazy. It's probably I don't want to be too biased in the sense of being a Braves fan, but I don't remember exactly what Washington lost that year injury-wise. It's probably better. If Atlanta ends up winning this World Series, it's kind of some ESPN documentary type of stuff. Like what's happened this season, the amount of people they lost, the third line change, if you're a hockey fan, that they've had in the outfield, the pitching that's had to step up. Ian Anderson was out. Max Fried was bad and hurt earlier in the season. It's very interesting to take a look and see where this team was 5-6 months ago. And I think, Ralph, if you'd have told me in June this team was going to be playing for a World Series, it's like, you are crazy. Like, I thought they could make the playoffs. And I remember saying that let's make the playoffs and that'll be good. But man, think about this, Ralph. Back in July, there were serious questions about what could we get for Freddie Freeman from people.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about a team that is just sent Freddie Freeman to his first World Series. You've been very vocal about that there's maybe not a more deserving guy of a championship opportunity than Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, and if you want to find out for me, please elaborate on who deserves it more. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've read some people's tweets saying Scherzer deserved this one. I'm like, well, Scherzer won one in 2019. He got put on to a better team. They couldn't make it. His arm is dead, literally. He said he could barely move his arm. Freddie Freeman's been on this team 11 years. It feels like he's played almost every single game, every single year. He's had a few injuries when he was first started with the Braves, and now he's basically been the face of the franchise ever since Chipper retired. And watching his reaction with Brian Snitker, I said this after they won the East, after they won the division, or won the division series. The connection those two have is it's like a father like son kind of thing, and it's awesome watching those two react to situations like this after a big win. You beat the Dodgers, you win your first NLCS in years, you get to go to the World Series for the first time in your career, and the biggest hug you're giving to someone is your manager. And I think I loved every bit of it. And if I'm as a fan's point of perspective here, you want to say I would do anything for those two guys to win a World Series this year. I really would. I mean, Brian Sticker is people always say like Freddie deserves it more than anyone. Brian Sticker's right there behind him. I mean, the dude's been in the Braves organization for it feels like
40 plus years.
It feels like 70 years. It feels like he's been there forever. And a dude who took over a team who just needed someone to help lead him, and he has done nothing but more than just lead this team. He has been the heart and soul of this team. And, always the first one out of the dugout when something's going on. He loves these players. He always gives them that second chance, and it feels like this is that season that everything's just going right in the right time.
Yeah, it sure is. What's cool about it too, Scott put this out there. A cool little deal about the series is Snitker's son Troy is one of the hitting coaches for the Houston Astros, so it's going to be a family affair out in Houston and back in Atlanta for this series. If you're wondering how it's going to be the flip of how the NLCS went: 2 in Houston, 3 in Atlanta, and then 2, if those games are necessary, back in Houston. We would love to. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'd love to have the series done next Sunday. That'd be fun in Atlanta's favor.
Mm-hmm.
But you said something that really struck out to me was Brian Snitker's calmness, his ability to lead, and I think it is how calm he is. A guy like that doesn't seem shaken when he's your team's leader is really big, especially in a season where a lot kind of went wrong. It'd have been very easy for Atlanta to make the excuse of, well, we just don't have all of our players. We don't have the big guys. We don't have Acuna. Freddie's been struggling. So that's the excuse, and we'll get healthy again next year, and we'll run this back. Well, instead of that, Alex Anthopoulos, who he's executive of the year. Like, there's no way that he's not executive of the year. But Brian Snitker probably won't win manager of the year unless Atlanta wins the World Series. Now, we've been saying to this point, Gabe Kapler has honestly, he's got to be the manager of the year. But if Snitker takes his team, wins the World Series,
that might change.
Wow, they may change.
The only reason I give Gabe Kapler it is because no one expected them to even make the playoffs or even
that's true.
They finished second in the division. They were expected to finish third place, maybe by even fourth place behind the Rockies, and they were able to make it to the playoffs, and that was impressive enough. But one thing I listened to a podcast this morning about the Braves, and Snitker is a manager who he manages for the game for his team. Some managers manages to answer questions at the end of the game. Why'd you do this? Or well, this is why I did this right here. He's going to do what he believes is going to be best. Now he'll answer the questions later on in the game. He's not thinking about that during the game. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is you watched them on Saturday pull Ian Anderson out in the fourth inning. No one was like, that's crazy. You're not doing this right now. We're looking good. Ian Anderson's trying to settle in a little bit, and you take him out with 2 outs, and you put a pinch hitter in, and look what happens. You would have said Snitker was crazy for doing that in the first place. And you look at what after he did, he's a legend. I mean, Brian Snitker, big brain, the whole entire Major League Baseball fan base. He just, I know what I'm doing. Let me do my own thing.
Yeah, he did a great job, in my opinion, of pushing the right buttons at the right time, making the moves when necessary, and they paid off. And that's one of the things about managing. If you're going to get upset when something happens that you don't like, you got to give him credit when something happens that you do like. It can't be both ways. And go back on it. I think that we're seeing for reasons, even though Luke Jackson has struggled in his last 3 appearances, we're starting to see, Ralph, the trust that we're starting to see the trust that people had issues with earlier in the season is paying off now. Like sticking with Tyler Matzik when he was struggling in April, May, and June is paying off in July, August, September, and October when it really matters. It was just a matter of getting there. Sticking with certain guys, sticking with Austin Riley when reporters asked after a trip to Chicago when he had 1 home run and like 3 extra base hits through the season's first month and a half, why'd you stick with him? Well, we're now seeing why. People want instant results, but they don't have the patience for it.
You're forgetting the major one, Bryce. You forgot A.J. Minter, who was sitting down in AAA.
A.J. Minter was sitting down in AAA, and he works on some things, and so the trust we're seeing with the ability to throw guys out there, if you just yank them as soon as something bad happens, that ruins the guy's psyche. It ruins his psyche. So it's very interesting to see kind of how that rolls. When we come back, we're going to go to commercial. We're going to come back, and we are going to do a position-by-position breakdown and preview of the Astros and the Atlanta Braves. Yes, the Fall Classic 2021. We're going to take a deep dive into it when we come back.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
Back here on the Crowded Booth Live. If you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or on Facebook, we appreciate you as well. We want to push you all to our YouTube page. Hit the subscribe button. We're almost 200 subscribers. When you do, Ralph will pick one lucky winner, and he will Venmo them $2 for their projects. It's okay, Ralph. I'll Venmo you. You Venmo them. That's how it'll work. It's okay. Don't tell the people that, though. But no, we're back here on the Crowded Booth Live. If you're listening on the radio on a Tuesday evening, then you're getting ready for Game 1 tomorrow night or Tuesday night, whichever time you're listening to this or watching this. Atlanta and Houston, 8:07. Is that what time they're going to do the official start time? 8:07 Eastern or 8 p.m. Eastern. That's what it says.
8:09.
8:09. That made an extra 9 minutes.
Yeah,
but,
why?
Ralph, believe it or not, the 2021 World Series will not be the first time the Astros and Braves have met in October because a lot of us forget the Astros, for their first 51 years of existence, were a part of the National League. They were in the National League Central. I vaguely remember the 2005 NLDS when Chris Burke hit a home run into the Crawford boxes and beat Atlanta as Houston went on to go to the World Series getting beat by the Chicago White Sox that year. But this is an interesting series on many parts. So let's take a deep dive into it. I know we had a couple comments about it. We're going to talk about some of the pitching, Scott said, and then we're going to talk about pitching in general, give the edge. And Ralph and I, we may not agree on all of these, but hey, that's what makes it fun. Let us know what you think as well. So let's dive in. We're going to go catching first off. Okay, so the two starting catchers, Martin Maldonado for the Houston Astros and Travis d'Arnaud. Now, the knock on d'Arnaud is that he's not hitting. Ralph, I guarantee you, when you tear the UCL in the thumb, it's still hard to hit. Rolling over, he's been wearing the little guard. I envision him coming back in 2022 resembling more of what he was in 2020 and 2019. But in my opinion, in this aspect, this is an opportunity where you look at the defensive metrics, and Maldonado, in my opinion, just has a little bit better. We've seen d'Arnaud struggle a little bit with throwing some base runners out because the Dodgers took advantage of that. I feel like the Dodgers were stealing every chance to get. How are you leaning, Maldonado, or are you going with d'Arnaud?
I'm probably going Maldonado. I mean, he's just been more of a fierce hitter, I feel like, and just more consistent, with d'Arnaud's injury. I feel like if d'Arnaud didn't have the injury, I would give it to him. But just because of the current situation, I think he's also a better defensive catcher. But that's the only reason why, honestly.
Yeah, Maldonado's talented. He's got a good arm. I think like you said, Ralph, the injury to Travis d'Arnaud limits what he can do, both with the bat and probably a little bit defensively as well. Well, let's move over to first base, where we'll just say advantage Braves, but I'll tell you why. Freddie Freeman has the better stats, but Yulieski Gurriel is a sneaky good player when it comes to this. He's a good hitter. He's a veteran. But I'll say this, the fact that Freddie Freeman's probably the best player in baseball over the past couple seasons, he's outside of the golden child Mike Trout, we will put him at the top, and then after that, Freddie Freeman's been so good for so long. But I think that for National League fans that really don't get a chance to watch the Astros, they're going to be pleasantly surprised with how good of a player that Yulieski Gurriel is. He's a solid player, but in my opinion, Freddie Freeman's just better, and I give the advantage here to the Atlanta Braves.
I'm not commenting on this one. I mean, it's someone who does it year in and year out, like Freddie does. There's just no one better. I mean, Gurriel is very good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like a consistent year or anything for him. And I don't think he's a natural first baseman. I think he played left field for a while. He's played a lot of positions. I think he can play a lot of positions, but I think Freddie defensively is one of the better hitters or one of the better players in baseball. To me, he's a natural Gold Glove first baseman. So
yeah, Freddie Freeman gets the nod there. Moving over to second base, where you have a 5'8" Ozzie Albies, a 5'6" Jose Altuve. Listen, they both have power potential, and they both showed that. Both guys hit over 30-plus home runs this season. Jose Altuve has been raking in the postseason, especially with a long ball that he delivered out at Fenway Park. But, these are both guys that I think, as much as we talk about the bats, Ralph, for Altuve and for Ozzie, the defense on both sides very good. Ozzie, a very good defender. Jose Altuve, very good with their on-field work. I'm going to go back to the stats here. I'm giving Altuve the slight edge because he does get on base at a higher clip. Sometimes Ozzie can come in and have non-competitive at-bats where he swings 3 times and it looks like he never knew what was coming. To me, Jose Altuve, and that's not to say, I'm saying Jose Altuve to me is just a tad bit more polished, but I think Ozzie Albies is just right there with what Jose Altuve is currently, but there's just a small thing right there. Altuve gets on it at a 40 points higher clip. I'm going to give it nod to Altuve. How you leaning on this one, the second base between Ozzie and Jose?
I got to give it to Altuve. I think he's more of a consistent hitter. He's not really an aggressive first pitch swinger. But I want to say one thing, though, about this defense in both infields. The Braves get the nod overall in the infield. One error throughout the whole postseason. Astros have 6. They are last in all postseason teams. That's including everyone who's played the postseason. Mm-hmm. So now they've played 10 games, but 10 games also the Braves have played, and they only have 1 error compared to the 6 that the Astros have. So I'll give it to Altuve. Fielding wise, I'm giving it to Albies. I really would. But they're not doing that. But I'm just splitting them right down the middle with those two.
Well, I'll say this. This is about one of the most even races when you take a look at them position to position, because these two guys have been compared to each other before, obviously due to stature, but to see what they've been doing, we're both taking Jose in that in that edge. Let's move over to shortstop, where Ralph, I think you and I differ a little bit. Now, Dansby Swanson does get to boast that he hit one more home run in the regular season than Carlos Correa. But what's weird to me is Carlos Correa ranks ahead defensive metrically wise, and I don't even care about stuff like that. I'm an eye test kind of guy, over Dansby Swanson. But to me, Dansby's better with the glove. I'm going to go with Correa because of his power potential. I think he's a little more consistent, and I think that's the big difference between, for me, Altuve, and going back to Altuve and Ozzie, is the big thing is Altuve is more consistent. Ozzie can be streaky, but when Ozzie's on, he's one of the best second baseman there is in the game. I'm going Correa over Dansby Swanson here. How you feeling about this one?
If Dansby was playing as good as he was for a percentage of the season this year, there's no way I couldn't give it to Dansby. But as of right now, Correa's has been playing better. He's had a few clutch home runs. They call him Mr. October Jr. because he's been one of the most clutch players in baseball through October. Sadly enough, I'll go with Correa. I don't want to. Not being biased, I don't like Correa. I personally don't. And you know why. I think everyone in baseball knows why I don't like him. But I just give it to him. So
yeah, obviously Carlos Correa, a talented young man. Houston trying to prove the narrative and kill that narrative as well. Benjamin London's got a comment here. Benjamin, this is a great question that I want to address at the end of the show. So the last little segment, we'll talk about that because it's very important to talk about that. Hopefully we can hold off on conversation like that as a whole because Atlanta's going to make a deep run in this World Series. Kyle Zoomstein over there. Dansby has been hitting 200 for like the last 2 months. That's the big thing for me is when Dansby's on, we saw him during the middle part of the year, Ralph. He was he was unhittable, or he was untouchable, really. He was hitting everything thrown his way. It was very, very big to see what he could do. So when he's on, he's probably the best. He's probably one of the best shortstops in the National League, outside of Trevor Story, Brandon Crawford, the year he had this year. But defensively, you and I were talking about this. When it comes to Dansby, in this sense, Dansby defensively, if Crawford did not have a career year, he's probably one of the best defensive, if not the best in the National League.
I mean, look at the plays he's made in the playoffs just so far. I mean, just
the last play of the NLCS.
I mean, that one in the NLDS Game 3, when they had 2 on, and he makes a diving play to stop them from scoring. I mean, he's been clutch in the infield, and then that's really where you need him right now because you're getting hits out of other guys, and Dansby's been there fielding wise, so that's just been perfect for the Braves right now.
We would like to remind you that Dansby Swanson is talented, but we are going with Correa over this one. So picking Correa over here. So middle infield, we have infield in general. We have Freeman, Altuve, Correa. Ralph, take me over to third base, where some people say it's an upset pick. And this is interesting to me. Bregman is unreal talented, one of the best third basemen in baseball. But right now,
he is not better than Austin Riley.
Riley,
I'll finish it for you. A guy who's had an MVP season, who should be the MVP. If he's not the MVP, we're having problems with whoever voted for him. Bregman's also been injured most of the year. I'll give that to him. He hasn't had a season like we were used to seeing by him. But man, defensively, Austin Riley's been locked down in that corner, and offensively, he's been really one of the most talented players in baseball. So I'm going hands down Austin Riley. If you don't go Austin Riley, that's okay.
Yeah, if you look at what Bregman's stats were, it's good, not great. When I mean great, I mean elite. It's not that it's bad. Austin Riley's just been that much better.
It's not bad.
It's just that much better. So going back with the infield, Ralph, we have catcher. We've got the Astros, Braves at first, Braves in the corners, and middle infield. We've got the Astros. Let's move to the outfield here because I want to get through this, and then I want to talk about some of the keys to the series. Let's go left field. Now, while Eddie Rosario has looked like the greatest player who has ever lived right now, Michael Brantley's a really good player. Really, really good player. He's a veteran. He's talented. It's not that, neither of them are very, I want to say, outstanding defensively. They've both made some plays, but they're not known for their glove. They're not very fast, although TBS thought that Eddie Rosario was the fastest player on the Braves because they just didn't know what they didn't know anything they were talking about that entire broadcast as Ralph checks his right arm. But it's one of those things that Yordan Alvarez could also be manning left field in games 3, 4, and 5. He right on paper, he's the better hitter to Brantley Rosario. He's also in the same category of Rosario now. He's on fire. So are you going left field? Rosario or the combination of Brantley and Alvarez?
I'm going Rosario. I think he's been too clutch of late, obviously, of game 6. I mean, game 6, games 3 and 4, where you both went 4 for 5 in both games. Eddie Rosario has been most talented players in baseball throughout the postseason so far. And I'll say it again, build him a statue between Bobby Cox and Hank Aaron. That's where he belongs right now. And I think Peter Moreland said it best. I don't know where he ranks among greatest Braves players of all time, but I would rank him up there in the top 10.
Yeah, so. I've thought a lot about this. I'm going to dispel it later, but I'm going Rosario right now. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going Rosario, but later on, I'm going to tell you why I picked Rosario. Let's go to center field. Ref, I don't know if this is as much as a question right now. I know Adam Duvall struggled a little bit. He did show some signs of breaking out in the latter half of that series, which would be very, very big, including the homer out in L.A. But Chas McCormick is really statistically one of the better defensive outfielders. But listen, Adam Duvall plays the position more out of necessity than preference, but he did hit the almost 40 home runs this year, 38 total. Yeah. He's got the big bat. He's also a really good defender in his own right. I'm giving the edge to the Braves here.
Yeah, Duvall, I mean, honestly, he's due for a big game coming. I mean, we saw it in game 4 when he hit the home run, which when a lot of people weren't expecting to go over the fence, and he made some very big defensive plays in center field. I got to give Duvall there. I think he's had a great season. And I think that having the DH in those first 2 games will really help, the Braves line up with him out there in the outfield. He's very good in center field. And honestly, you can just put him at DH if you need to. Put Heredia in center. The greatest center fielder in Braves history.
You need to watch your mouth. There's a man named Andrew Jones that played in Atlanta for a while. Let's roll right here. Now, let's quickly go through this right field. It's been Jock Peterson's spot so far through the playoffs. I imagine we'll see Soler at some point. But Houston's got a man in Kyle Tucker who's hit 4 postseason home runs. He is unreal. He has the highest, if you're into this kind of stuff, OPS plus in the entire Houston lineup. I'm going advantage Astros here. I think Kyle Tucker has broken out this year. I'm going advantage Astros on this one.
I'm going to go to the combination of Soler and Peterson. Because Soler, as much as he strikes out or flies out, grounds out, he does draw a lot of walks. And I think the combination of both him and Jock playing in those first 2 DH games will be huge for Atlanta. I think it brings more pop to the lineup in general, obviously. I think this team gets a lot better when you have both on the field at the same time because of the DH. So I'm going to go against you. I'm going to go Soler and Peterson combo because you used the Alvarez and Brantley combo at first. I'll use my
you'll use your one combo pick.
My one combo pick. This is my one combo pick, and that's the only reason why. But
yeah, no, and I like that. And I think that's where it makes it so interesting because, Ralph, we do have the DH, which is the next one we're going to take a look at. I'm going to give the DH role. I went with Rosario earlier in left field. I picked Rosario. I didn't pick my combination.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'm going with the DH because I think they have a better potential combination. I think that Yordan Alvarez is a better pure DH than anyone that Atlanta has in the roster because he's fit in that role so much this season.
He's to me, and there's nothing against what he does defensively. He's not a horrible outfielder, but in playoffs and big situations, he's a defensive liability. He's not quick.
We're talking about him being the DH. He wouldn't be playing.
I know.
I'm talking specifically DH.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. He's a better DH than he is just a regular everyday player. So, yes, I give them the advantage of DH.
And that's not to say Atlanta's not going to employ a Jock Peterson or Soler, however they decide to do it as a DH. It's just one of those things that I think make a big difference. I want to go back to some comments over on Twitter because if you are on Twitter and watching, we can't see your comments or pull them up right here. So I think that'd be something very, very interesting to talk about. Kyle comes back with us saying that he felt like Riley's extremely underrated defensively. All the work with Chipper and Ron has paid off. I believe that as well. And then Owen Lakeman as well. Owen, we appreciate you watching the show. He was at Game 6 Saturday night, one of the loudest sporting events he's ever been to. I believe that. I believe that for sure. So we'll end it up here with this segment right here, talking about pitching real quick. This is going back to Scott Robinson's question. And Ralph, just as I said this, Jesse Chavez has accepted my follow request on Instagram. So there we go. That's good. So we'll see if we can get him on the show. That would be that'd be amazing.
I know I was on a podcast or a live video with a superstar here.
Yeah, it's okay. Scott Robinson, would you guys give the pitching edge to Atlanta? I will, and here's why. I think the maturity of the starters is better than what Houston has. Verlander's obviously been done for the season. Obviously, Lance McCullers is, as far as we know, barring some miracle, will not pitch in this series.
He will not. He's already been rolled out officially.
So he's out. Listen, Houston has some of the top arms. Valdez, Garcia. They have some of the top arms. They still got Zach Greinke, who is more than capable of rekindling some postseason magic somewhere because he's just that kind of pitcher. But I think Atlanta's three, Morton, Anderson, and Fried, we talk about the need for a fourth starter. No team has really used a fourth starter this season, in this postseason. Houston certainly hasn't. I mean, so it's something that's very interesting to see. I think Atlanta's three matches up better with theirs. I'm going to give Atlanta the favor in this, but the bullpen is close. I think Atlanta has the better single arm, but I think Houston's bullpen might just be a tad bit deeper. But that could change, Ralph, if Minter continues what he's done. If Luke Jackson, if he can find himself back, because he's been so good all season long. It's just been these past couple outings that I think that home run out in LA against Bellinger really shook him a little bit, and now he's trying to reel it back in. And it's hard to do that against one of the best teams in the major leagues, against the Dodgers. If he comes back down to earth, so I'll do this right here. Starting pitching advantage, Braves. Bullpen, a wash. I think they're still very, very good. Both groups weren't great during the regular season, but they've stepped up. Both of them have.
I give the nod to the Braves in the starting rotation. I think our three are more of a lockdown three, just because of what they've been able to do in the playoffs in general, what they've been able to do all season long, especially from July on, really, because Max Fried to me has been one of the best pitchers in baseball from August till now, really. And bullpen wise, I'm gonna go and say you may give them, the Astros, the bigger name guys, as they have a lot more people who are kind of bigger name wise. They have Greinke, who is going to be one of the best pitchers we've ever seen. You got Jake Odorizzi, who's really good. Ryan Presley's very talented. Kendall Graveman, who was to me, one of the best closers in baseball this year with Seattle, then got traded to them. But to me, that's the really only trade that they made this year that impacted them that much, was Kendall Graveman, who's been great of late. But to me, I would give, if Luke Jackson is able to get back to what he was able to do, that will be the biggest difference in this game, in this series, because the amount of right-handed or bats they have on this team that are really good. You need him, and if he's able to pitch like he has all year and has of late, besides the last two outings, I would throw the bullpen to the Braves. I think the Braves bullpen would be better, just because of how locked down they've really been, especially that bullpen game in Game 4 of the Dodgers series, and just how impressive it was managed and how impressive everyone did, from Chavez to Drew Smiley. I mean, Drew Smiley has been great. In his one postseason performance all year, it went 3 1/3. I mean, if you can get 3 1/3 of one bullpen pitcher, you're good to go. So, just because of that, I give it the Braves just a little bit.
I'm going to say here, I think it's very important to realize both of these bullpens, like I said, they struggled in the regular season, but the additions, I mean, this is two teams that really went for it at the trade deadline. That's why they're in the World Series. Atlanta did it with the offensive side. Houston went with the bullpen. They got Graveman, Yimi Garcia, and Phil Phil Matan, however you say his name. Both guys all these guys have experienced success before they bring it into Houston. So it's a group that has been shored up just a tad bit more. Like I said, it's going to be fun to watch. I think this series is very even-keeled. When we come back, we got a couple questions. We're going to talk about some keys, and we're going to answer a couple questions after this right here. But, Ralph, the biggest thing, man, that we have to be concerned about is our heating and air working correctly? Because if it's not, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be miserable during this season because you're too cold or it's not working, hot water's not working. But listen, climate control, heating, and air conditioning is your number one stop. You can schedule an appointment with them today at cchc.com or call 706-457-5441 today to get your appointment scheduled. Listen, they are one of the top providers with an extremely great history since 1983 here in the Chattahoochee Valley area, serving everywhere from the Alabama state line up into the LaGrange, Troup County area as well. Make sure to hit them up for all of your needs as they continue to be a proud supporter of the Crowded Booth. Bryce Kuhn and Ralph Leary here back on the Crowded Booth Live. Ralph, we've gone through, we've made our selections, and I think the biggest thing we can say is that this is a pretty even series, in my opinion, than a lot of people give them credit for. I was already watching a couple predictions, and it was like, well, the Astros are really, really good. Okay, this whole 88-win narrative has got to go away because this is not the same team that was playing from April to June, July. I think that you have to be able to get rid of that. It's quite frustrating to see that out there. Let's go right here because Scott Robinson had one of his keys. The Braves got to lay off the balls out of the strike zone. They had a problem with it against the Dodgers, especially the curves and sliders. This is a team that is very aggressive. Atlanta loves to swing early on in the count. They love to try to ambush, and it's worked for them up until this point. Against a relatively young pitching staff, and the starters, that is, at least, for Houston, could that be something that they can take advantage of? Or is that something that Atlanta gets hurt by in this series? Ralph, what do you think about that? Because this is a team that loves to swing the bat early and often.
I mean, you really got to be patient with this pitching staff. They're going to try to throw it outside every time. They're not going to throw, inside high to, Freddie Freeman. They're not going to they're not going to serve up pitches on a silver platter. Mm-hmm. And we saw that a lot with the Dodgers. I mean, they throw a lot of pitches outside. Duvall and Darno might have swung at those pitches outside. Even Riley did a few times. You gotta lay off on this pitch. I know it's hard to hit a baseball. We both talk about it all the time. When we watch the games together, Bryce, it feels like every pitch we see in the dirt, I would have swung at it. I know I would have. Hitting a baseball is impossible sometimes, and some of this movement and these guys have these days, you're gonna swing at pitches, and they just gotta learn how to don't swing the ones that are in the dirt. All those curves, those sliders. I know they look tempting at first, but they gotta lead up. Just lay off on a few of them. Mm-hmm. The more pitches you get these guys to throw, the quicker you get into the bullpen. And that's what I think the Braves did really well against the Dodgers. They got to the bullpen quick. I don't think any of the starters for the Dodgers went more than 5 innings, I think.
Yeah, it's something that's interesting because even Framber Valdez, who's going to be pitching in Game 1 against Atlanta, he's kind of been up and down this postseason. Now, lately, he's been very, very good. But his first start against Boston, I think he surrendered 4 runs in 4 1/3. So it's something if you can get to them early and often. And at this point, I don't know if any pitching staff scares you when you just faced Urias, Scherzer, and Buehler. I know they didn't have Kershaw and Trevor Bauer, but that's still 3 of the best pitchers.
They had someone scarier named Bruce Gratterall in the bullpen. So
I'm
okay with facing anyone right now. And then don't forget, we can't forget Blake Trinan, who's probably one of the greatest bullpen pitchers in baseball right now.
I'm not sure how anybody ever hits the baseball against Blake Trinan. Will, right here with this comment. Acuna made the trip to Houston. Any thoughts of him being activated a la Kyle Schwarber in 2016? While that would be amazing, I don't think that Acuna. I don't think that he's going to be able to come back in this one.
As much as I would love this to happen,
it would be awesome. It would be awesome.
If man walk, I don't think he could. If he swung a bat, he might hit the ground. I really believe he would.
When he walked out of the dugout when they announced his name, you could tell he was a little gingerly. So I don't know if he could quite make that.
Well, I saw the video of him walking today to the bus. It was a little gingerly, but you can see that having him on this team right now is a little different mindset, and I think it brings everyone's spirits up having him. Obviously, you have Guillermo Heredia, the greatest dugout presence,
swordsman.
the
Bigger
swordsman.
baseball swordsman.
I mean, throw it back to the NLCS Game 1 when he's walking into the stadium with 2 giant tomahawk steaks. I mean, this dugout, having him, Acuna, even having you guys like Pache and Contreras, they're always fired up. So as much as I would love to see Acuna hit a walk-off home run to win the World Series with a torn ACL, it's not likely.
We got a question here from Scott. This is a good one. Does Rosario stay in the leadoff spot and Soler DH, or does Soler lead off and move Soler down to the 5th hole? I think that what they're going to do, and I'll even actually give you my lineup right here. Are you ready for this, Ralph?
Sure.
Ralph, are you ready? Okay. Just want to make sure you were ready for this.
Positively ready.
I'm actually going to say that I think it's Rosario, Freeman, Albies, Riley, Soler, Duvall, Darno, Swanson, Peterson. However you want to put that out there. You could put Peterson. I'm sorry, put Peterson after Soler if you want to. Duvall's been struggling a bit. So let's go that. Let's go Rosario, Freeman, Ozzie, Austin, Soler, Peterson, Duvall, Darno, Swanson. I think that's your lineup. I think if it's not broke, do not fix it. Do not fix it whatsoever. Rosario has shown that you have to trust him in that leadoff spot. He's doing a job. I think that's real big. Ralph, any thoughts on this before we move on to our individual keys?
As high as Rosario has been, you don't want to move him on a leadoff spot. But then again, you don't want to have 2 lefties leading off against a lefty. That's my only, problem with it. You have a lot of lefties in this lineup we're not really used to having. I would probably we're not managers, so Snicker's got his own plan. I would probably keep it the way it is right now. Probably put Jock at 7 or 8, just to give it a little more distance between lefties. And, I don't want to hit 9th and then having technically 3 straight lefties coming up. So here's the best thing about this lineup against Valdez. Ozzie's hitting from the right side.
That's going to be huge. Ralph, I got a stat for you real quick. Now, you talked about Freddie Freeman. He's batting this season .257 against left-handed pitching. Eddie Rosario is batting 9 points higher against lefties than he is righties. .265. He's got 2 home runs, 23 RBIs, and we know he's been on fire as of late. So I think it's very interesting to...
Well, you know what? He had 2 home runs off Urias, so I shouldn't say anything anymore.
Yeah, we shouldn't say anything anymore. That's okay. No, anyway, so Ralph, let's give our keys to the game real quick as we wrap up today and tonight's show. What are your 2 – let's go 2 keys for this series for Atlanta, and then who wins this one, in your opinion?
Okay, my 2 keys instantly. You need the starting rotation to go late. You don't want to have your bullpen carry you through these games because they're probably worn out already. As much as I want to see this bullpen go off like it did in Game 6 and Game 4, I really want to see, Charlie, Max, and Ian go 6 or 7 innings at least, just so this bullpen can get some rest every night. We're not having to throw the same guys 2 innings again, And one more thing is get the bats hot early. You can't let this team get up 4 runs, 3 runs really early on in the game because it's a hard team to come back to. They're a very good offense, like you said, probably one of the best offenses in baseball. They can hit a lot of home runs. They got probably one of the, like you said, the best DH in baseball. And they're going to have a DH for 2 games, and things change when you come back to Atlanta. So you got to. I said I'm going to go back to the same thing I said in the NLCS. Win as much. You need to take one on the road. And win all 3 in Atlanta. You don't want to go back to Houston down a game or even tied because they're probably a better chance of winning at home.
So are you saying Braves in 5? Is that your prediction?
Braves in 5, yes.
Braves in 5. Ralph going right there. Real quick, my keys. I like what you said about the starting pitching. Has got to go deep. We need to see more from Ian Anderson and Max Fried, in my opinion. I think Charlie Morton's done a great job of pitching. Fried was obviously not on his game. I think he will be. I think Ian Anderson can take a step up because I think what he's trying to do, when you try to strike people out so much, that's when you see your pitch count go up. We're seeing him labor through innings 2, 3, and 4 sometimes like that. That's limiting to what he can do. If you want the bullpen to be as effective, at some point you've got to go deep into a game and allow them to get some rest. I'm also going to go with 2-out hitting. I know that it's obviously one of those things, but just like we knew against the Dodgers, at some point the dam's going to break, and it broke in Game 5. It broke in Game 5 because they did a great job of hitting. But I'll tell you this, Atlanta needs to come up with some type of hits that are back-breaking like the Dodgers have done to Atlanta so far over the past couple of years. They've got to be able to find that, Ralph. They did a good job of that in key moments. If they're more consistent in that manner, I think they could win this series. So you picked Braves in 5. I'm going with Braves in 7. I think this thing could go the full distance. I think that Charlie Morton is going to have some real big opportunities.
This is where he shines. This is where
he shines.
This
is why you signed him.
Yeah.
That's why you signed him.
To bring up Scott's question, I looked it up. I had the same thing you did. 1 year, $8 million was where the Indians signed him to. We took over that contract.
Mm-hmm.
So he is still signed to us. Is 1 year, $8 million.
Yes, and so he will be a free agent in the season. That brings up the last question. So we made our picks. I want to go back to Benjamin London's because we got a couple more minutes. Out of all the free agents at the end of the year, who gets signed and who gets left out for the Braves, I'm going to tell you right now, if it was my decision and I had a pretty good inclination that the DH was going to come to the National League because the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, will expire, I'm bringing everybody back. Everybody. I think that you bring Rosario. The only one that could possibly walk is Jock Peterson. If somebody, wants to pay him a little bit more and maybe he gets an opportunity to start every day. That's the reason he left the Dodgers. But I think that they have a great opportunity. Ralph, if the DH is there, do you bring everyone back?
Oh, 100%. And obviously what you said about Jock, it's the same thing as he wants to be an everyday starter. If he can't be that in Atlanta, he'll walk. And there's nothing against that. I understand it completely. But you had to bring Rosario back, I think. Mm-hmm. I think Rosario has been too good of late for you and really good all year to not sign him back. And then Adam Duvall's got to be brought back. He should have been brought back last year. We understand the situation. We were told by Anthopoulos, but toward the middle of the year why he wasn't brought back in the first place. Mm-hmm. And Soler, I think Soler had an off year this year. Obviously, he had a lot of things changed him in 2020. And a lot changed early 2021 season where he was sluggish at first. I think he just wanted out of Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And now he's in a better place. I feel like he's comfortable in Atlanta. And bring him back, I think he's a dangerous bat to have in your lineup because you're not going to have Ozuna next year. So fill those outfield spots as much as you can because you're not going to get Acuna back early on. As much as he wants to be back probably opening day, you got to give him some time to get that knee healed. So,
yeah, and when you can do that without the likes of bringing in Pache and Waters, who have shown that they're not ready for the major leagues.
Well, we haven't seen Drew Waters yet,
but he hasn't shown that he's ready in AAA.
I agree.
I like this right here. So going back to the question, he does not need to be back at all.
He doesn't need to be on the roster
at all.
Send him down to single A.
Send him to Augusta Green Jackets.
He can't even buy a hit. Like physically, he's horrible.
For the people listening on radio, it's Johan Camargo. He has not been able to do much of anything.
And if Will's still watching this, Will, don't comment saying that we need to keep him. He's horrible. He hasn't got a hit all year long. Will.
I don't say players are bad, but he has looked bad.
He's a great AAA
very,
hitter.
very bad.
Terrific AAA player.
All right, Ralph, final thoughts here. Braves make the World Series for the first time since 1999. We were 2, now we're 24. The ticket prices are averaging around $900 to $1,000. But where are you going to be watching? In the comfy confines of your own home?
Yes.
Yes.
In the comfy place at the tailgate on Saturday, where I'll be watching it from. And I also said this: if the Braves get the 3-0 lead on Saturday, I will be watching it from the Battery. Because that would be a fun place to be at.
Last question here, Scott Robinson. Do you think it ever clicks for Pache? I think it still could. He's got the talent. You cannot give up on a young guy. We just had a need. We had to put him in there. It was too early. And so now what do you have? You have the opportunity for some veteran guys to come in. And now the pressure's not on Pache, where 9 months ago it was, because he was our starting center fielder. We appreciate it as always, everyone. That's so much fun. This is the Crowded Booth Live on a Monday evening. If you're listening on the radio, that's on a Tuesday. Listen, we enjoy talking with you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. We are 16 subscribers away from Ralph sending $2 through Venmo to somebody. We can't wait to come back with you on Tuesday night. If you're a Georgia Tech fan, make sure to tune in. Wednesday night, we will not be live, but we will be on the radio Thursday recapping the first 2 games of this series. Patsy Lane Leary, we say hello, and this is your son who is going to talk us out.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on.